For my comparative study, I will be looking at color theory in two fantasy films, Pan's Labyrinth and Maleficent, and how they compare or differ, one being rated R, the other being PG. My first film that I chose is Pan's Labyrinth. It's a dark fantasy that takes place during the Spanish Civil War. Ophelia, the main character, is staying with her pregnant mother Carmen at a military camp along with Captain Vidal, Carmen's significant other. Ophelia soon discovers she is meant to be the princess of the underworld, but must carry out 3 tasks to make it happen, all in the midst of her evil stepfather and the war going on. In the first opening scene, Ophelia is on the ground bleeding while the scene is blue. Blue is a dreamlike color, and the blood on her face and hand can indicate the horrors to come in this film. The next shot is blue as well, indicating the underworld, which is a spiritual world. Not only does blue point out that it's a spiritual world, but it also lets us know how dull the spiritual world is without Ophelia. Here, the beautiful nature colors are shown, but disrupted by the black cars. The men are wearing gray uniforms, and the dull green wheelchair all shows the dullness and the depression of the war. Vidal provides Carmen with a dark green wheelchair, and he may seem caring for this, but he's actually inconsiderate considering Carmen shouldn't have been traveling at all with her condition. The dress Ophelia wears is green, indicating she is the princess of nature. The room is blue from the night sky and moonlight shining through the window, and we also see this blue fantasy-like color outside where Vidal is with a captured son and father. Vidal beats them to death, making the blood contrast to the fantasy-like blue, showing us the violence of Vidal and the darkness of this fantasy film. In this shot, Captain Vidal is explaining to the others how they're not equal to the others and how the war is over and they won. Behind him, an orange color is shown, which is the fire, and this helps him appear as dominant. Mercedes is wearing brown, and the walls in the house are brown as well, giving off a depressing tone because of the dull color. This can also represent how Mercedes isn't truly happy. After all, her brother is on the opposing side and trying to avoid being killed by Vidal, and Vidal's just not a good person. Moments later, Carmen is seen in a white dress indicating her purity and cleanliness. White also represents safety, which will foreshadow and contrast that idea later on in this film. Later, she gets really sick and Ophelia places a mandrake root and milk under her bed, protecting her. After the mandrake root and the milk being destroyed, she dies after birth, contrasting what that white dress may stand for. The scene is typically a warm color when the scene is focused on Ophelia. This shows how she is optimistic. She could have chosen to ignore the 3 tasks the fawn had her to complete, but she went through with them. She also could have chosen not to take her baby brother and run, but she wanted to do what was best for her and her brother. In this film, I noticed a difference in color between reality and fantasy. In reality, the colors are dull and dark, and for the aspect of the fantasy world, the red and gold colors are more vibrant. We see how harsh Ophelia's reality can be compared to the underworld. The different colors in reality and fantasy are meant to have an emotional impact. Color doesn't only help create a mood or tell us about a person. It also helps us tell the difference between time periods or locations, and in Pan's Labyrinth, it helps us identify locations. As mentioned above, the colors help us know the difference between reality and the underworld. Ophelia opens the book up and it begins to fill the page up with red ink on its own. Red indicates danger, and this can foreshadow danger, and it did. Moments later, Ophelia opens the door where she sees her mother in pain with blood all over her dress. Color theory plays a big part in Pan's Labyrinth. We would not be able to interpret the story, characters, or locations as well if it was in black and white. These shots in black and white are not only boring, but we can't tell she's in the underworld or that her green dress helps indicate her being the princess of nature. That being said, colors plays a large role and has a deeper meaning than one might assume in film. There are formal elements to understanding genre theory. Iconography is one of them. It's the symbolic meaning we attach to images. Another one is tone. The way the frame lit can indicate the genre. Iconography includes costume, staging, set, and stars. Costume design in Pan's Labyrinth helps show that it is a fantasy film. The faun is shown as an unearthly creature who we know is a part of the underworld. It has rams and milky eyes, taking on the appearance similar to a goat. Also in the film, we meet Pale Man. Pale Man doesn't look human as well. It comes alive when Ophelia eats a grape from the feast that she wasn't supposed to touch. There are things in the film to help us identify that it is a fantasy film, color being the most talked about so far. Also, what we may see in the film may help us. The pollen is seen floating through the air and it adds to the fantasy aspect, looking magical. Tone is another formal element to understanding genre. Here, the low-key lighting gives a darker tone to reality. It gives a sense of despair and entrapment. The high-key lighting gives a brighter emphasis on the fantasy part of the film. It also gives a sense of escape and happiness. One might not think of a fantasy film to be rated R, and in fact, Del Toro had issues having someone produce this film because it was hard envisioning this dark, violent fantasy. My second film, Maleficent, is about a fairy who falls in love with a man from another kingdom. After years pass, he finally returns to her only to betray her and cut her wings, all so he can hold the title of being king. Out of anger and revenge, Maleficent put a curse on his daughter, whom she turns out to care about and love later on. In this shot, the sky is pink and purple, showing Stefan and Maleficent's love for each other and establishing how Maleficent felt for Stefan early on in the film. The narrator says how Maleficent wandered alone and wondered where Stefan might be. In this shot, it is dark and blue, showing Maleficent feelings of how she's down or sad about Stefan not showing up. Once again, the scene is blue, indicating the shock and hurt Maleficent is going through because Stefan took her wings. As Maleficent walks through, all the bright colors becomes dark. The creatures are afraid of her and notice her wings are gone. Maleficent is now shown in all black, showing how she changed from a beloved fairy to an evil feared one. Green is known as the color of poison. Maleficent is cursing the baby and a green dust is seen over the baby. Maleficent makes this color green not positive and happy, but it has a negative connotation. We see the pretty pink flowers Aurora is laying in, and it changes to autumn color leaves, indicating the season change as well as her change as she's becoming older. Here, the white snow is seen, and snow usually indicates hardship or death. It can foreshadow what's to come for Aurora, considering the audience already knows about the curse on her. The blues in this film is a fantasy-like color and also a cold, depressing color like in Pan's Labyrinth when Ophelia was dying or the underworld in the beginning. The colors gold and green are seen and looks as if they're battling. Gold is considered a very uplifting and positive color and is already established. This green represents poison. We then see green overpowering the gold and to know that the curse has not been reversed. A peach color is shown indicating the sunset. Sunset usually represents the day being over, and in this case it represents Princess Aurora falling into the deep sleep. Maleficent is seen behind a golden gate. Gold meaning prosperity. Maleficent did want Princess Aurora to wake up, and that's why she dragged the prince to the castle, even though it was dangerous for her to enter the castle. This scene started off dark and blue. Maleficent was bounded by iron chains. Iron can harm fairies, and the men had Maleficent at her low point. She then turned Diaval into a dragon, and the orange fire was seen making Maleficent dominant once again. There are a few fantasy tropes I spotted in this film. Let's start off with character tropes. The Chosen One. Maleficent was the Chosen One. She kissed Aurora's forehead, which awakened her. The next character trope is the Evil Overlord. Maleficent represents the Chosen One and the Evil Overlord. She is the one who put the curse on Princess Aurora. She also has minions, the Tree Warriors and Diaval. Low lighting in this scene adds to the dark fantasy aspect, showing us how King Stefan is feeling. He's worried, angry, and depressed over his daughter, who he knows Maleficent has placed a curse upon. Finally, we see a typical good versus evil fight. Everything becomes colorful and beautiful again, showing the peace and happiness. Unlike Pan's Labyrinth, there is no bloodshed when they go to war in the beginning of the film, nor throughout the film. There is also no profanity. That's how these two films differ. Angelina Jolie, who takes on the role of Maleficent, is a big actress who would not only attract a younger audience, but even teenagers or adults as well. Like most fantasies, it all ends well.